over the middle. Second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown!
Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one! Another one!
Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor.
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway is with me as always. Going to get things started. It has been a great sports week. Plenty to do, plenty to talk about, plenty of going on. Of course, Indiana returns from the Bahamas on the basketball side. Football camp is continuing to move forward, Kevin. And all things are looking good right now for Indiana.
Yeah, it's been an interesting practice so far, for sure. And looks like that first scrimmage went reasonably well. Stephen Carr created a little separation in the running game. All three quarterbacks threw the ball particularly well. Jack Tuttle, Michael Penix, and Donovan McCulley. And Tom Allen even hinted that you could see McCulley maybe on the field for, maybe some wildcat or, a few special situation kind of plays.
I wouldn't be surprised at all because it gives them the opportunity to get someone in just to give a different look. But that's the only chance of a quarterback running is if he's in the game, because Michael Penix is not. I think he has explicit rule or marching orders, no running. But they probably can't say that. I mean, you can't just drop. You have to. It's a weird situation. You gotta treat it as normal. And he wears a brace and he's got to run. And he says he's 100% healthy. So he's going to do, I think they're going to do everything they can to minimize, like during this, the fall camp, he's not going to get touched. And then who knows?
Yeah, I don't think there will be any designed runs for Mike. I mean, Mike will run if necessary, obviously.
Oh, no.
But I do not see that being as part of the repertoire. I think the question comes then if you do bring Donovan in the game, is that telegraphed and are defense is going to eventually know that, he's coming in to run the football, but it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. But, I think the run game too will be, interesting in the competition. And, David Ellis unfortunately had a little ankle issue. It's not serious. He'll probably be back at the end of the week. But now with Samson James gone, you've got Baldwin, you've got Ellis, you've got Stephen Carr. So I think, the offensive balance will be interesting to see, too, with Dylan McCullough, who obviously coached Kevin Coleman, Jordan Howard, some really good running backs here at Indiana, how that gets established as well. But apparently the offense performed really well.
Well, and I guess the biggest news of the day that, and Tim points out, is that Jalen Hood-Schifino cut his list to 2, which – he already has an announcement date coming up here in what was it, 5 days on the 24th, 7 days, whatever. I didn't know or expect that he was going to be doing that. But again, you got to think that's a good sign for Indiana, but who knows? I mean, Pittsburgh's not making much of any noise, and at least Indiana going to the Bahamas, it creates a buzz. And then you can read the stats, he can see what Tamar Bates is doing. And so at least there's a buzz there. You would think, just as if you're a betting person, looks good for Indiana, I would think.
Yeah, and like you said, I think what happened was he probably saw a little bit or heard a little bit about how they performed over the weekend, how the offense performed, how the team in general performed, and some positive vibes coming out of the Bahamas based on how they performed out there, which was reasonably well. I mean, the biggest takeaway was probably, I thought, was the defense and creating points off turnovers. And if you can do that in the Big Ten, you're gonna have a shot to win some games because it's so hard to score in the half court. You gotta get those run out baskets, and that was something that we're few and far between under Archie.
Yeah, a lot of things. So I'm not even going to go there. But yeah, I just I don't know that was expected to happen for him to do that, but because he'd already cut his list to 5, and usually once you cut it to 5 and you announce an announcement date that's a week away, there's usually no more cuts. So who did he eliminate? Texas, Tennessee, and I'm trying to remember who the other school was, and I can't. But
Memphis.
Memphis. There you go. Wow. There you go. Cuts Penny Hardaway and Memphis, who may have been Indiana's biggest competition. Maybe not. Maybe it's Pitt, obviously. What would Pitt have to offer?
Well, where's he from?
Great question. Man, I don't have his thing pulled back up, his bio.
Yeah.
Because I forget where he is from. But
And
that
then
is and there's always relationships that you don't know about with assistant coaches. So I don't know what the
Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, he's from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, that's right. He's from around where my brother lives, I think in the Concord area. But
6'5",
we'll
210, 4-star kid from Montford Academy, where Kevin Boyle, very good coach, very good developer of talent. Lots of really good players. Obviously, Kate Cunningham.
I don't want to get fans their hopes up. I'm just saying, if I'm looking at this, it looks good for Indiana. But hey, I thought the kid from the football recruit, Strickland or whatever his name was, I've already forgotten his name. It's not even worth remembering. That went to Purdue. I thought he was going to come to Indiana, but that was a surprise. So you can't ever tell. You never know. So there you go. But you're down to 2. We'll talk more about that later as well. But what else has been going on with you? What have you been working on?
Yeah, just a lot of stuff about basically football related. This week I got something coming out on the helmets, the Guardian caps that they're wearing, for practice, and also, we get Jonathan Hayes today, the new kid from Ole Miss. So there's a lot moving and shaking in the football world. That Indiana's ranked, right? Number 17, first time since 1969 that they've been a preseason ranked top 25 team. So
68. Now wait a minute. So we're in this discussion.
Yeah,
I had this discussion yesterday. What I've looked up is 68. They were ranked in the preseason.
that's what I've looked up too. And Brew claimed 69, but who knows?
And when did they play in the Rose Bowl?
67, 68. Yeah.
Okay. And that was January of 68.
Yes.
I think that they were ranked in the preseason after their appearance in the Rose Bowl, which is the 68 preseason poll.
But apparently they were also ranked after the 6-4 season for some reason. I don't know. That's what.
But that doesn't matter. This is still the last time that they were there. No, it would have been I don't know. It's goofy. I don't know how in the world they could have been ranked after that season. They lost their last 2 games.
Yeah.
Substantially.
Yeah.
So, it's up for debate. But that's a great debate to have, I guess. A fun one to have.
In fact, it's the late 1960s. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Which you were an infant and I was hardly born, probably.
Man, all the guys joining us here this morning. I'll welcome on Ryan and the Creek Walker. Let's see, Tony. That's what I thought. Tony, he figured Memphis was the one to beat, so he says his hire at Rivals remains a dream. Hey, you never know, man. But yeah, it's the Schifino thing. That's I like that for Indiana. I definitely think that the buzz that's coming out of there, because you're playing those teams that no one knew what to expect. I didn't expect them to go out there and handle those guys at all, and I think that may have opened up some eyes.
Yeah, I mean, with the European teams, you can never tell, particularly defensively. Like, I take some of the offensive numbers with a grain of salt. I saw some people tweeting that Xavier Johnson is going to be a dominant point guard in the Big Ten after this, and I'm just not sure that you can judge that based
I'm not seeing any of that. Yeah, I'm not seeing any of that
off 2 games in the Bahamas. But I think the defense and just the overall style of play of being aggressive, that change to the switching man defense, I think was probably holding probably a high charged European team to 32% shooting from the floor. That shows you that they're going to grind defensively and they're going to battle possession by possession. Parker Stewart had 5 steals in the first game. He didn't have a great offensive, but 5 steals. I mean, that's pretty impressive. They had 13 steals in the first game. So that shows you that they're going to grind and they're going to give good effort on a night in, night out basis.
Wyatt, we appreciate you, brother, and we'll be here. Just mark where you were, and you can remember us. But I look forward to you, Wyatt. Thanks. He's got to go. He's got class. Appreciate him listening before he goes in, though. Here you go. Overtime elite.
Yeah.
We've talked about this many times. I think there were yesterday there was an offer to we talked about a kid that was a $500,000 offer, I think. I don't know what Tim says that Drake, Kevin Durant. I am so over Drake. Go back to Canada.
Go back to Toronto.
Go back to Canada and stay there. I'm sick and tired of him. I just rubs me the wrong way just by being him.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant, Jeff Bezos are financially backing this. 2 players just signed for $1.2 million contracts and still get NIL. Why are they hell there? Why are they? I mean, just go pro.
Yeah.
But this is do you know whose fault this is? All this, every bit of this comes back to the university presidents. This all comes back to the schools. This is their fault. They put themselves in this mess by refusing to yield in the slightest way all these years to give these kids something. And this now, you're going to lose tons. I think they're going to lose. How much money are the schools going to lose over this? Think about the merchandise sales that they are not going to get now.
I mean, my point to this all is people are still going to care regardless of the talent level. They're still going to care about the school brands. They're still going to care about the conferences. They are so ingrained that they're still going to care. Well, then how are they losing money?
Because some schools, Ohio State is allowing their athletes to use their logo.
Yep.
So you're telling me that there's not going to be a loss of income to Ohio State if you've got this jersey here that Joe Blow is selling for himself as opposed to out of the Ohio State bookstore. They're not getting any of that money.
Yeah, well, as it should be. And I think I
agree. I'm just saying,
yeah,
they have caused all of this, and now it's not only caused all this mess, it's going to cost them money, and it's basically, I don't know if it's going to wreck the high-end college athletics.
Yeah. And by the way, IU signed that group licensing agreement to a brand R. I think the way it works is everyone gets a cut of that. I don't think it's just. I think the player gets a cut. I think the school gets a cut. I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
If it's an agreement, yes. But I think Ohio State says they're going to allow them to use it, was my understanding.
Okay. Yeah.
But that may not be correct, but
yeah. What's interesting is that Florida, they have some yokels that own the trademark and they're getting all the money. And I was talking to some friends down there. I'm like, well, why can't
what trademark do they own?
They own the Gator trademark. So apparently it goes to some yokels that own the Gator trademark instead of the athletes. You know what I mean? They have to get
How does
permission.
Florida not own their own trademark?
Yeah. It's very strange. It's, like the whole thing is like, because somebody bought it from them apparently to use for licensing. So they actually made money off it, but they sold the trademark to someone, some company.
I'm like a management group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
And the athletes have to get permission from that group to use their trademarks. Yeah. But they're going to be left behind in recruiting because of it. Yeah.
What if AAU teams start getting financial backing and compete with Overtime Elite? Those are two different things. AAU plays in the summer, and Overtime Elite is a school, right?
Every time these leagues form, they disappear because people don't care.
Yeah.
They still care about the college brands. That's my opinion on it.
You can only do so much. And this one may get a little traction, but I agree with you. Hey, we got to take a break. What is today? Today's Tuesday. Mike DeCourcy's joining us today. Can't wait.
Looking forward to that.
With more. Yep, we're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans. I'm going to make this my breakfast screen.
Breakfast at Tiffany's, he said, I think I remember the And I said, what about breakfast?
Mike's here.
Well, he said,
He got to see the back end of your breakfast screen.
He's like, what the hell's going on here today? Got Kevin singing. Mike, how are you, man?
I am good, Jim. How are you?
Getting back in after a crazy week. I moved my daughter to Ole Miss.
Oh, my.
It was
How was
hard
that?
8 days.
Did you have fun in Oxford? Did you have fun in Oxford?
I did the show Friday. Immediately afterwards, I left, drove, got to Oxford that night, spent that morning moving her in a nightmare scenario. They did this over a week last year and decided to do it over a day into this dorm, this 11-story dorm this year, which is a catastrophic mistake. We moved her in all day Saturday. I was back in Bloomington at 2:30 in the morning. It was rough. They did this over a week last year. There's 11 stories of freshmen into this dorm. And this year for the sororities, they did it all in one day. And it was a colossal. It was 100 degrees. It stunk. I want everyone to have to do that again. Of course, there's the end of the school year. But there's all the greatness of going away to college and all that. I didn't get to see the campus yet like I'd really like to, but Indiana has a bye week, October 9th, and I'm going to go down for the Arkansas game.
Yeah. You going to take me with you, Jim? We're going to go do a road trip.
You're welcome.
And stop in Memphis, go to Silky O'Sullivan's.
Oh,
Good piano
man,
bar
we
there on
can
Beale Street.
stop in Memphis, man. We're
All right,
going
gotta
down
bring
to
us back in.
Tupelo.
See Graceland?
6th Street and Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway with us as always, and the great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Fox and BTN. Michael, how are you, sir?
I am well, Jim. How are you? How are you, Kevin?
Great.
I'm good, yeah.
Yeah, how are you, Kevin? How are those Mets doing, baby? How's that Mets song go? Here's on the Mets. Bring on the Mets.
The Mets. Yeah, they're falling apart. It's just it's
Man,
you know,
they were on top of the world, and I'm like, what?
that time of the year. No DeGrom, no Lindor, no Baez, no hope.
And the Reds, and although the Reds are 7.5 games back, but they're playing well. They just can't hardly catch a break. And the Cubs, wow.
How about
they've lost 12 straight now?
Yeah. Congrats to Joey Votto, 2,000 career hits last night. Huh?
Yeah, I got that last night. Saw that. They I don't know what the final score was last night. It was 12 to 5. Is that the end last of the score as last I saw? Golly. Yeah, they're playing well, but they can't make up ground, Mike.
I think you have to focus on the San Diego Padres at this point. Yeah. The Brewers, just, what's going to stop them? I mean, they just don't lose. The Reds have played exceedingly well, and the Brewers they've made up no ground. They've actually, I guess now technically, it depends on where your flex point is, but they basically made up no ground as they've played very well over the course of the last several weeks. So you have to look at the Padres. They're now a game and a half back. Padres are in a division where they get hit in the head by the Dodgers and the Giants a bunch between now and the end of the season. And the Pirates are the Reds are in the situation where they play the Pirates a lot. So if you can't take advantage of that, it's on them.
Yeah, I said the Cubs have lost 12 straight. The Reds are playing the Cubs right now. I guess, did they open a series with them last night? Because I saw they were playing them. I don't know if that was for the first time, but let's hope, because they've lost 12 straight. And then the Pirates, the last I looked, they've lost 9 out of their last 10 or something like that. So, the Reds are playing two teams that haven't won a game since 1966, it looks like. So they can use all the help they can get, but I think you're right. What else is going on with you?
Well, what else is
going on? He's got his Liverpool shirt on. Just noticed that. Hey,
I do. Want to know? Stop the season now while they're still champions. I think what's going on is college football's coming. We had a conversation with our college football editor and our college football ace Bill Bender that we published yesterday, involving little different predictions, like what'll be the biggest contender for the Heisman that's not a quarterback. And one of the questions was, what's the biggest September game aside from Clemson, Georgia? And I was shocked, guys, that I was the only one who cited Indiana versus Cincinnati. I think that game is enormous. With what's being expected of Cincinnati going into this season, coming off their undefeated regular season last year, and the great game they played in the Sugar Bowl until the final 90 seconds. And then, of course, the Hoosiers coming off their best season in goodness knows how long, and coming back with so many of the players that made that team so successful. It's an enormous division point for those two teams. For Cincinnati, if they want to stay in the playoff hunt, and look, they're never getting in the playoff. Don't get me wrong. They could go 100-0, and that ridiculous committee is not letting them in. But if you want to stay in the hunt, and there's two different things there, then they have to win in Indiana. And for IU, if you want to talk about the biggest bowl games, that's a big game for them to win. That, look, Bearcats, whether or not they beat Indiana or Notre Dame, they're going to have a great year. They're going to do well. So that would be a great win to have on your resume if you're the Hoosiers.
I agree with you. I think that the game loses, if any, luster from those people because they still see Indiana is Indiana. They're not a team like Cincinnati, who doesn't really have that schedule, doesn't have any tradition either, but they can do things like Central Florida and become darlings and accepted quickly. But a team like Indiana, they've got to do 3 times as much to get over 100 years of this stigma, I guess, because they haven't done it. And they've shown, and these last 2 bowl games have not helped them. You lose 2 bowl games that you should have won. So that I think that sticks in the national pundits' minds. That they just kind of see that, and they don't see a lot. And that's kind of how I see it. But I agree with it. Indiana's way better than a lot of people think. Indiana always, their games on TV with the Big Ten over the last few years, some of the highest rated noon games were Indiana games. Indiana, Michigan, Indiana. They play good games with these teams, and so. And I agree. I think it's going to be a spectacular game. That there's no telling how great that game can be.
Well, they played
non-conference matchups.
They played some of the most exciting games of the 2020 season. The game against Penn State was breathtaking for everyone involved. And the game against Ohio State, Buckeyes had to come back. So they played some fantastic games. And I said, as I said, that Bearcats Georgia Peach Bowl, I may call it the Sugar Bowl, I may not, but anyway, the Peach Bowl. I always keep thinking, because it was indoors and dark in there, that it was the Sugar Bowl, but it was really the Peach Bowl. And that was a fabulous game. It was really well played and really enjoyable. And then Georgia pulled it out in the end when Cincinnati kind of wobbled a little bit in the final 90 seconds. But those have been great games. So I really fully expect Georgia versus Indiana to be one of the really interesting games of the college football season. And I'm just tweaking my guys a little bit. They went with the bigger brands, but I think that's going to. I really think it's going to be an important game that's being overlooked.
Well, it's a non-conference game, a big non-conference game early, and there usually aren't a ton of big non-conference games early, especially if a potential top 10 matchup. If Indiana beats Iowa, they're probably going to jump. I don't know if you can jump 7 spots, because that's going to take a lot of movement there, but top 12 matchup at the very least, probably. That's pretty good for week 3.
And hey, let's be honest. I mean, there haven't been a lot of those games at IU in Bloomington. I mean, they just, because they haven't been that position very often. So I think it's really thrilling to see that's coming to Bloomington, and I'm sure that the Bearcats are focused on that. For the nature of their schedule, that's a huge game for them. And then they have to follow that up with Notre Dame, but they're fortunate in that they have 2 weeks in between. They have plenty of time to get ready. So it's not like they get banged in the head twice in a row. They've got a very difficult game against IU. If they're lucky enough to survive that, then they got a huge game at Notre Dame. But again, they have some time to prepare. So I think it's exciting. And this sort of reminds me of why the college football playoff needs to expand, and why, when I talked before about Cincinnati's never going to get in there. Well, not in this format, but in the 12-team format, they have a chance. I mean, they'd have to obviously do the things that I talked about, but they'd have a chance. One of the other questions that we debated: what will be the most fascinating conference race that we have in college football in 2021? And I said the Pac-12, because whether or not Alabama is going to win 12 games is not that fascinating. I mean, it may be on a particular Saturday. If it gets close, that might be fascinating. But in toto, it's not, because they do it every year. Clemson, same thing. You want to have these races where, like we were talking about before with the baseball, you want to have different people having a chance. That's what makes sports interesting. And that's what college football has abdicated. They have given up on that. There are people that have been brainwashed into thinking that it would be so awful if the playoff had an 8-3 or 9-3 team in it, or an 8-4 team, or whatever. The whole point of sports is to compete. If it's not just to watch Alabama roll up 12-0 records with 12 first-round draft picks. That's not what really we watch sports for. Maybe the Alabama Crimson Tide fans do, but competition and the look, if I want to see something that's great, that I know how it's going to turn out, I'll turn on AMC and watch The Godfather for the umpteenth time, because it's still great, and I know exactly what's going to happen at everything, but it's still great. But I watch sports because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. The argument, I think, Mike, has always been that the regular season is a playoff, right? That you devalue the regular season by expanding the playoff. That's always something that I had heard over the years, but I didn't know your thoughts.
And that's a great point to make, Kevin. And let me say why that's nonsense. Okay, they and that still came up when they said about the 12-team playoff. Well, the reality is right now the regular season only matters for about 5 teams. Yep. And if one of them happens to fall, then it might matter for a 6th. But it doesn't matter for anybody else. Whereas I went to, I think it was 2016. I never keep these years straight. I went to a terrific conference championship game between Penn State and I believe Wisconsin in December 2016. If that game had been for an opportunity to be in the college football playoff, that game would have been fascinating and intense and consequential and all of that. And instead it was for a Rose Bowl bid. And everybody there wanted to win that trophy and hold it up and have that moment and all that. But it didn't matter to the rest of college football because neither of those teams was going to the playoffs. So it makes the regular season, the way it's structured now, less consequential. There are far fewer games that matter in college football than in any other sport. And if you institute automatic bids for the Power Five and the sixth best conference, then all of a sudden, all of the games in those leagues matter.
Yeah,
everyone matters. And if you're go ahead.
I was going to say, and not only that, but it makes the October and November games matter for certain teams that in the past, if you had 2 or 3 losses, you just kind of mailed it in. Now you have what's akin to a September pennant race in November for some of these games, where so many of those games in the past, you would just be, shrugging your shoulders and, not caring.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the players and coaches play those games for the most part, almost universally, with great pride and desire to win. But the rest of college football doesn't care. Yeah. I mean, those games don't matter to anybody. Ole Miss versus Mississippi State matters to alums of those two schools. It's that big rivalry, the Egg Bowl and all that. And it's, they got a trophy. But the rest of college, people, the only other people that watch are people who are bored or they have a bet on the game. And that's it, because it doesn't matter to anybody. But if those teams were in a playoff race, then it might. Now, I don't think that's ever going to be the case now that they've expanded their league to include the Miami Dolphins and Pittsburgh Steelers. But I still think that there are ways to get more teams, more games that matter.
Yeah, Pat Fitzgerald is a gigantic advocate. For 2 years, I've heard him talk about this. The Big Ten plays 3 non-conference games. The SEC has 4 non-conference games because it's a bigger generator of money. You bring those teams in. There's disparity there where conferences aren't playing the same. And he says he doesn't care if it's 3 or it's 4, but everybody needs to be on the same playing level.
Well, I understand his point, and he's right, but you can't force people to do it's a choice. And the reason that the SEC does that is to protect their teams from one another, essentially. In a lot of the markets down there, it doesn't, look at who they play in that 12th game. I mean, it's a literal joke. I mean, it's the Citadel. The poor Citadel, because I'm always picking on them, because I remember when I think Alabama played them, but it's not just them. It's it's Northeast Louisiana or whoever. Those games.
LSU brought Troy in a couple of years ago, and that didn't work out too well for them. They paid $1 million for a loss at home.
Well, you're contradicting my point here, but I can find more than a few.
That doesn't hapen very often. That does not happen very often.
Florida, Georgia Southern. I was at that game. Yeah, when Georgia Southern beat Florida. Yeah.
Those are extremes, and so it's not fair for us to step on Mike's point, like he said, because what he's saying is exactly right. That is 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just money makers. They're money makers for the school. That's all.
They're exercise. Money maker for the school, exercise for the players. It's a joke. They really don't play 12-game seasons, to be honest. The others do. I wouldn't at all, and that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't at all be bothered to see the 12th game go away. In order to make the playoff more tenable for the athletes who do get to participate, I would not be at all bothered to see the 12th game go away. Most of the teams don't want to play 12 games. It's too much to ask of the players, so they give them exercise like Idaho. Penn State's played Idaho in the past. We've all seen, the Murray States pop in there. It's not a real game. It's exercise. And basically fans are asked to pay to watch their teams exercise. And so I don't think that that's good for college football. And it would be better to have a real playoff and an 11-game season.
But you got those fans in the Southeast that if you said that Alabama is going to play volleyball today on the football field, the football players are going to play volleyball, they would probably get 90,000 people in there to watch them play volleyball.
Absolutely. As long as it counted toward Nick Saban's unbeaten season, it would be.
Hey, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of the great Mike DeCourcy's with us. Kevin Brockway as well. We're back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for
Hey, Jim, why don't we talk about that Conference Alliance story that
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's switching over to that next. Because I don't know. I still don't know what are the plans. Or I guess they don't know what the plans, but I'm like, how do you do that?
I have a theory about what it's really all about. That I can't get any of my peeps to fess up on, but I'm pretty sure that I know what they're doing.
Tell us before or after.
Well, I believe that it is about structure. They'll hide behind the idea it's a scheduling alliance. What difference does a scheduling alliance make? They're all booked up until like 2035 or whatever.
And you can schedule whatever. Doesn't take a big deal to make that. Hey, you want to schedule? Okay.
But here's what it is. The SEC wants to boss everybody around now because they got Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, et cetera. So right now the Autonomy 5 are a 5-conference block. Whether or not the Big 12 hangs on or not, who knows? But it's still 5. But if you have 3, SEC can't boss you. If you have 3 saying, okay, we're going to vote to pay the players, and the SEC wants to do it, let's just use that as an example, and the other 3 don't want to, pay the players out of their own pockets or whatever. Well, then, as long as they got 3 votes, the SEC can't boss them. So I have no doubt that that's what this is about. That it's about us staying together against them because they clearly want to be in charge.
I agree. I agree. I mean, because they have to do something in there to protect themselves, and that's the only way that I can imagine that they could do that.
Right.
I mean, there's just no other way. It's about power.
Yes.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Mike DeCourcy is right, as usual. That's always right. That's always the case. What's your theory, Michael? I mean, Kevin?
I just, Big 10, Pac-12 have that, they have a long ingrained relationship, and also the whole, and Jim Phillips with the ACC used to work for the Big 10. So it makes a lot of sense all the way around. You have a lot of TV partners, right? Fox.
Well, it's not sense, it's necessity, I think. Like Mike says, It's necessity.
Right, we got about 10 seconds.
$270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you here on this Tuesday. Jim Bowers, thanks a lot for joining us. He says, good morning, long-time podcast listener, but first-time watcher. Thanks to have you along,
I hope the sight of my face doesn't turn him off forever.
No, man, that's the good stuff. We're going to the good stuff. Before we're going to talk about the conference alignment, but before we do that, there was one thing I wanted to ask. We were talking about this earlier, Mike. The Overtime Elite League that's trying to form. Drake, Kevin Durant, and Jeff Bezos are financially backing this. 2 players just signed for $1.2 million and still get NIL deals. I don't know what that's going to do. It's just, I don't know that it. Are they going to be willing to continue just to shell out millions and millions, all these kids? I mean, that's what they'd have to do to make that thing go. And what's the point of making that?
I'm still trying to figure out, Jim, how do you have a league which is what they call it. They call it the overtime elite league.
Like 2 or 3 teams.
They don't even have 3 teams. They only have 1 team. Like, I guess you could technically have, since you only need 5 on the floor, but traditionally most organized basketball teams have had 12 players. So they don't have 12 guys. So I don't know who are they going to play? What are they going to do? I talked before about exercise for money. I mean, what do they got? Who are they going to play? It's the whole thing is a ridiculous conceit. I don't blame the young people. I mean, yesterday's $650,000 contract went to a 4-star prospect. Do you know how many 4-star prospects there are out there?
Lot.
There's like 80. And some of those guys come into college basketball and can't get any run because it's hard to make a college basketball to make a starting lineup. You got to be really good, and a lot of 4-star guys never are able to do that. So if somebody's going to throw 600 at them, I can't blame them for doing it. I just can't understand. Like what I can't understand how one has a league without even a full team.
Yeah, do they have a television contract even? Like what do they have? Like
supposedly they do not. My initial thought was, well, they must be like signing to exercise control. Like in Europe, if you go through an academy and join a team, at a certain point, they have control over you. Once you play for them professionally, after you're eligible to sign for them, they have control over you. So when you file for the NBA draft, you basically have to pay. Somebody has to pay so that you can leave that league in Italy, Spain, or wherever and come play in the NBA. Which, of course, the colleges, that doesn't exist. I mean, you leave college when you feel like it, and nobody gets paid for you to leave. But that's my understanding is that's not what they're doing in the overtime thing. So I don't know what their idea is. I still don't get it. Why anybody would want to throw that much money around, on players who will not, look, we all have seen the crowds at G League games, right? I mean, flick it on during, before the bubble thing, but back when there was an actual season and you turn on, either on ESPN or on the internet, and you see the crowd, and there's there's less than 500 people at a lot of those games. And so what's the market for this? Why they're doing this? I don't get it. But I don't blame the young man yesterday who said, okay, I'm doing this if you're going to give me this much money. I will caution, however, that if you're a 4-star prospect, and you have, let's say, the option to go to, say, a Duke or a Wake Forest or somewhere like that. I mean, you're talking about before NIL, you're talking about an educational experience that's worth more than $500,000. And then you throw NIL on top of it. I'm not sure that $650,000 is actually as good a deal as that.
Yeah, I agree. Conference alignment, the big talk now. The SEC made the gigantic splash with Texas and Oklahoma coming over in 2025, which we all know that'll probably happen way before that. But this is also, is this a way of keeping them from doing that before that, or making sure they spend the $80 million that's for each of them that has to pay to leave early? There's a number of things here, topics, the Big 10, Pac-12, Big 12. There's things for their benefit. And this is also, I just thought about that, is protecting the big, it's a way for the Big 12 to protect themselves, I guess, from being cannibalized. Maybe.
Well, the Big 12 has a grant of rights in place, which I believe runs until 2025. So what a grant of rights is consider it like this. If I work for a company and I sign a contract and I say, okay, I work for you until 2025. And if I leave, then you get my salary from my, you get my salary from my new job. That's kind of what a grant of rights is. You are saying that the Big 12 controls your television rights for until 2025, at which point you get them back. But until then, they have them. So in order to leave the Big 12 early, Oklahoma and Texas would either have to allow the other Big 12 schools, the remaining 8, to collect the money that they'd make from the SEC, or they'd have to negotiate some deal by which to exit early. And I don't know exactly what that might entail. So we'll see how that goes. But I did find very interesting the story that ESPN broke late Friday about the meetings and the proposal of some sort of agreement between the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC, that they might have some sort of alignment among the three of them. And initially, there was a lot of question. Why would the Big Ten, go in with those three on media rights? Look, that's not going to happen. I mean, unless they sign a contract where the Big Ten says we get half and you guys split the rest, that's not going to happen, because right now, give or take a few dollars, the Big Ten makes around twice what the others make. It's just roughly. They make around twice what the others make. So they're not going to sign up for an even split with the other two leagues. That's not going to happen. But what they can do, and I think what they are considering doing, is right now the Autonomy 5 conferences. We all know what they are: SEC, Big Ten, Pac-12, Big 12, and ACC. They have the ability to make rules at the NCAA level that define their competition. They were the ones, for instance, that passed the cost of attendance payments, and other members of Division I, if they wish, and I guess Division II and III, but I don't know about them. But other members of Division I can also join in cost of attendance. But when they passed that rule, they had to. All of them had to agree to that. They once the rule was passed, they had to go along with cost of attendance payments. So they can make other rules like that. And I think what this is about is there's a feeling that the SEC is trying to run everything by the acquisition of Texas and Oklahoma. And so if those three band together, 5 votes, you get 3 of them together to stand up to whatever the SEC might want to do that they might not want to do. Those 3 votes outweigh the SEC's 1. And if the SEC doesn't like that arrangement, then they can go off on their own and do their own thing. And then they become what? As their own league, what are they? A 60-cent NFL. So I think that's what it's about. That it's about making sure that they have a voice in the power structure, and maybe even the loudest voice, because they would control 3 votes. Whatever happens in Big 12 doesn't matter. It's either 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5. And so I think that's what this is about.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it also, I talked a minute ago about, gives more value to games. You talked about the increasing the value of these games. That's part of what Texas and Oklahoma brings to the SEC. I was reading about the 4 million club, the games that are in the viewers with 4 million or more. I forget how many broadcasts there were, but it was like 1,200. There were 198 of the 4 million breakers of those. And that's the ones where they really make the money on. And that's what they're trying to create, more of these. And this would obviously create more of those type of games, which pay more, which gets your rights up and allow you to make more money, and continues to give them that solidarity and power that you're talking about.
Yeah, the Big Ten is not hurting for money, as we talked about a week ago. They have a great appeal. There's discussion about declining population. I mean, it's so infinitesimal. They are not gaining population in the upper Midwest and East as rapidly as they are in the South. But that's not really, it's so small, those numbers relatively, because really at the end of the day, I mean, the population of those states is still pretty massive. And the alumni base of Ohio State, hey, Purdue has its biggest freshman class in history. They remember there were news stories all week when Purdue opened about where they were going to put everybody. So the alumni base for those schools is not getting smaller. The fan base for those schools is not getting smaller. The Big Ten is going to be fine. But I do think that the idea of allying with the Pac-12, which they have had a long-term relationship with over the Rose Bowl, the ACC, where the commissioner, as Kevin pointed out during the break, the commissioner is now former Northwestern AD, good friend, Jim Phillips, really bright guy. And so there's a natural association with those three. And so I think that I think it's smart for them to look at how they can make sure that they retain their status within the power structure of the NCAA and of FBS.
Now, the ACC is not involved in the alliance, though, are they?
They would be, yes.
Oh, they would be.
It's not the Big 12 that's in those conversations.
Oh, I'm mistaken. Well, what does the ACC bring? The ACC needs this, in my opinion, football-wise, because they – and I don't know, there's no other word, is they suck football-wise. You got Clemson, and that it is – they used to, talk about the Big Ten being the Big Two and the Little Eight. Well, they're the Big One and the little however many they got left, 13 or whatever they got. I mean, it's Clemson right now, and it is just really – and it's been that way for a couple of years. They used to have some good teams, and Virginia Tech and Louisville had a good run, and Miami, Florida State, all these teams that just were powerhouse programs, and I don't know how in the world Florida State and Miami, good God, Indiana's making a living off of players from Florida. How in the world is Florida State and Miami not doing this? But coaching, I guess. But
yes, I mean, Florida State has not been exceedingly well run in the post Bobby Bowden era. That Jimbo Fisher had success, but it was not exactly a smooth sailing, right, Kev? I mean, you were down there. That boat was a little rocky a lot of times. Miami has not done well.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do, too, with facilities and commitment to facilities down there. And apparently a lot of those schools, I think what happened in the 1990s and the early 2000s was just kind of the arrogance and maybe also the thinking of, hey, we're warm weather states. We don't need indoor facilities. We don't need the bells and whistles. And what happened was other schools took advantage of that, built these palatial facilities for football players, and it impacted recruiting. And a lot of the talent is starting to leave the state now. And you take a look at a school like Alabama, take a look at Nick Saban's roster, and take a look at all the great South Florida players that have gone up there. Amari Cooper was a guy that, it's a little bit of misevaluation too, I think, with Miami and getting knowing who the best guys in South Florida are and getting them. And a guy like T.Y. Hilton goes to a smaller school, FIU, instead of Miami. You don't hit on a guy like that. So there's been a lot of factors for both Florida State and Miami, but I think those are some critical ones why they've really struggled the last decade and a half.
So where, as far as this alliance, how does the Big Ten benefit?
Well, as I said, that in that concept of the power structure, 5 votes at present. Doesn't Big 12s doesn't matter. SEC wants to run the show. If you stay together as a group, those three, the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten, SEC can't they can't impose anything unilaterally. I mean, if they want to, as I said, they're going to have to separate on their own, completely on their own. And people have talked for years about the Power Five separating and going out and doing their own thing. Well, they already have done that, and it's always been kind of fantastic because they already do that in football. They run their own show in football. They make their own rules, as I've just been discussing, and they run their own championship, and they keep all the money from that championship. So that's always gone on in football. So now, if the SEC wants to have things exactly as they want them, and it's clear that they want to have some say. And maybe an overly loud say in how things are run. They can't overcome 3 votes without completely separating. And again, complete separation. Hey, if you want to give that a shot, go for it. But who are you going to play? How interested are people going to be now that, like I said, you're basically, you're a lesser NFL, a far lesser NFL. If you do it that way and don't stay attached to the rest of college athletics.
Well, they can get Drake and Jeff Bezos and whomever else
They can play the overtime elite.
There you go. Start that. Like, go. What's next for you, man? I know you're not. Your duties don't for BTN and all that doesn't start quite yet. When does that start?
Oh, not for a while. Yeah.
Good. Oh man, I was gonna say you're off there. Indiana did play over the weekend. I'm not. There's nothing to see, and it was all by stats and all that. But I don't know if you were able to dig into any of that or see any of it. We just got a minute or so to go, but it seems like a really good weekend for Indiana.
Yeah, I think it's a professional team that they're playing, a good professional team. Kentucky played that same team, although obviously not with the same roster, 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah, it's a legit team. And so, I think it was a good experience for them to get down there, especially under a new coach with so many new players. Miller Kopp played really well based on the stats, and that's something that's really important. They started 2 shooters in both games, which was really important. 2 shooters around a point guard, which we talked about a week ago. Can you play the 2 bigs? Well, yes, if you play 2 to 3 shooters with them. So I think it was a great experience for them, and you can't beat a couple of days in the Bahamas. And I think that's exactly what they needed as they try to ramp up rapidly. A lot of these guys aren't going to be there next year, so it's not just about restarting the program and ascending. It's about trying to be really good from the jump.
What do you have coming up next, Mike?
The next thing I will be writing about that concept, the whole idea of what impact conference realignment might have on basketball. We're going to talk about that. So, I don't think in the end it's likely to have a lot, but there's always the threat that it can, that it could mess with the pristine greatness of the NCAA tournament.
I agree. Make sure you give Mike a follow at the Sporting News as well. Great. One of the greatest writers our country has. Mike, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you as always.
Thanks, Jim and Kevin. Always a pleasure.
We're back with more from Indiana Sports Beat from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Chronic Hoosier joins us.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're looking... Yeah, baby.
Yep.
Speak of the devil. What up?
Boom. I'm here. Sorry I'm late.
I'm not late.
Bed.
You're not late. What's new with you, man?
Oh, just another week in paradise. Got a boy who somehow figured out a way playing football to open his leg from side to side. So we got one on crutches a week before I go on crutches.
Oh, damn, he's on crutches. How many stitches did that take?
Took 12. Took 12 in a phone call.
How old is he?
He's 12.
Does he play football or anything?
Yep. 1 week away from the first game, and they was playing backyard ball. Just went down, got tripped up, came back up, and his entire knee is literally open from side to side.
I can still see the scar on my knee right here. When I was the summer before my senior year, it's like this exact time. I was over goofing. Oh, no. It had rained right before practice, and we played on this shitty-ass field. This crap dirt they must have dumped there, and so that rain brought the rocks up, and they were out there sliding in the mud, and a buddy slid into the back of me one day, and it cut my knee open. That thing didn't heal for 3 months because of football. It sucked every day, just bleed. But hopefully that one, I didn't get stitches in mine, so hopefully that'll take care of it.
Yeah, that was, I'll say this much. If you can avoid it, going to the emergency room right now is not a very good time. It was about 8 hours.
Oh, God, yeah, that was really, holy crap.
And then you're going to get treated in the hallway because there ain't no more rooms in the end.
That's crazy. So you got a new Mind Your Banners out? Well, you don't, but you don't. Dustin and Zach.
One with Dustin and Zach real quick. I was tied up now, probably sleeping off the 8-hour overnight stay in the hospital.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I hate to hear that, man.
He's on the mend now. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back to school here tomorrow.
Oh, how you doing? How's that knee?
Doing well. I got one more week hobbling around, and then go get some cadaver parts next week. I'm pretty stoked.
Yay.
All right, time to come back in.
Has homemade coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio's Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday. That means Kevin Brockway and Chronic Hoosier. Chronic, how are you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. Glad to be back. Glad to have some games to talk about.
Lots of that action to do as, of course, Indiana basketball in action over the weekend. We've talked about the Bahamas. Didn't get to see that. I couldn't go. But the stats and all the reports that we have, it was a good weekend in a lot of ways. And a lot of things were able to gain from that. Players, positions. And so it's a lot of positives that came out of that.
No, absolutely. You know, it's always nice to leave with a couple of dubs. Most importantly, for the most part, everybody left healthy. Sounds like a little bit of an ankle tweak for Miller Kopp, but other than that, it's always the big concern is the off season winds down and camp starts. Well, I guess basketball's not quite a camp yet, but they did get 2 weeks. But most importantly, they got most of the bodies available, and everybody that traveled with them is able to come back. Sounds like those that sat out are probably not going to be out too terribly long. So always encouraging. But most of all, I think it was just great to see reports, see news, and limited clips of a team that really seemed ready, willing, and able to get after it on both ends of the floor. And for most Indiana fans I've talked to over the last several years, issue number one is get them engaged in the game. Get that activity level up. And it seems like Coach Woodson and staff had no problem bringing a squad that was ready to play some dang basketball.
Yeah, and Kevin, you're one also didn't see it, but just going off of the stats, what did you gain from that weekend?
Yeah, no, I agree with Chronic. I think the biggest thing was the defense, or the fact that, you played a more aggressive style, you turned the ball over. 13 steals in the first game. I think that's the main takeaway that I get from it, is the fact that, this new defensive style, I think it's going to be something that Hoosier fans will embrace, because they want to see that effort on that end of the floor. They don't want to see you parked in, kind of like a pack line of zone defense. They want to see that. They want to see you go out there and get after that. That kind of signifies effort, kind of a blue-collar mentality, and that's what Mike Woodson is going to bring to the program, which he obviously learned from Bob Knight in the 80s.
Yeah, and that's one thing that the team seemed to have been lacking. But it was good to see that the different faces, new faces, seem to blend with the old faces. Rob Finney, we talked about this with Todd Leary, and I talked about it yesterday. His role seems more defined and manageable for him. Guys seem to have roles that seem defined, even though we didn't even see it. You could look at stats and listen and gain that, man, guys seem to have their roles and they seem to be playing them. Something we haven't seen for a few years.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that stood out as you look at the stat line is there's a lot of talent on this roster, obviously, but most importantly, you see a roster that showed a lot of depth. Everybody got minutes, even some walk-ons down there, which isn't expected when you have double-digit wins on both nights. But getting contributions from the backcourt, from the front court, a team that shot, I believe, 39% from the floor overall, 34% from three-point line. 66, just a tick under 67% from the free throw line. Obviously, that's a little lower than where you want to see it. But for a team that has struggled mightily for years now to shoot the basketball, just demonstrating, early in the season, Woodson admitted there's really been an emphasis on the defense. Offense has been considerably lagging. But a team that's going to play wide open, it's going to get up and down the floor. And find an open man and knock down some shots. That was probably the one quote that stood out to me the most from the weekend. Woodson talking about what his offensive philosophies are going to be. And, he emphasizes unselfish basketball, how unfair it is not to pass to the open guy. He's earned that by getting open, get the ball to him, and let him take his shot. So it looked like a lot of guys were more than willing to take that opportunity upon themselves. And, it looks like we had a pretty balanced offense. Trace Jackson Davis averaged double figures, 16 on the weekend. Tamar Bates stepped up, averaging 11.5. Race Thompson with a solid 9-point average over the course of the weekend with 9 rebounds to boot. You look at those three right off the bat, and, if you can get those types of contributions from at least 3 players consistently, history shows you're going to be in pretty good position if you can keep that up.
I think what was interesting was Chronic after the second game, when Mike talked about the offense, he said, not to get them play like robots. So I still think there's a little bit of thinking going on instead of free flowing, but that's probably to be expected when you're learning a new offensive system.
Well, and how much of that goes back to Bob Knight's motion offense. It's designed to present choices, and obviously there's a premium on making the right choice. But when the ball's moving and the bodies are moving, guys are going to become open. You're going to have different opportunities. Which one makes the most sense for your team in that given moment? And I'm really, really excited to see how he implements some of those philosophies into the new offense. Because as we've seen before, this was an offense that you could tell they were programmed. We're going to get the ball down low, then we're going to try to kick it out, then we're going to try to get it back low. And it was so predictable. It was very robotic. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't take a little bit of additional time deprogramming some of that and putting the concepts in place where these guys are presented with some of those choices that he was speaking of.
And as we fall now, you got to wait till November 9th for their opening game. But that's okay, because between then and now, you've got Indiana football to talk about, which now that is underway. You've got the Cream and Crimson game coming up in, when is that, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Was that on a Sunday? I don't, not to put you on the spot. And the only reason it's usually on a Saturday, and somebody was talking to me yesterday about it being on a Sunday. I'm like, well, I have to check. I don't know, but that didn't seem right. But I'll have to check that, or someone will tell us here soon. But yeah, that's going to be exciting. There will, as far as a game like this is not something that Indiana gets a big attendance to. I'm wondering what this one would be like.
I'll tell you what, I can't wait to see, because I actually got to go to Armstrong last night to go watch the soccer exhibition against DePaul. First time I've been able to step foot on the IU Athletic Complex for a game in over 17 months. And, for a Monday evening exhibition at 8:00 in the middle of move-in week, was kind of impressed by the crowd that was there. A lot of students trickled their way up the hill coming from the dorms. A lot of familiar locals that were there as well. But it was just, it was absolutely, it was just amazing. It felt so good to be back. It felt so good to see that element of our community return to the community, a place where we can all kind of come together and watch some games, and you realize just how much of a place that fills once it's taken away from you. Because quite frankly, once the lake season ends, what else do we do here in Bloomington besides go watch football, watch basketball, watch baseball, and all the other sports?
Exactly. So coming up now, we've got the fall football season to look forward to. The AP poll came out. The preseason AP poll came out. Indiana ranked 17th in that. Along with the coaches poll. So they're going to open the season at Iowa with a top 20 matchup. You got the excitement starting right off the bat. We've talked about the potential of a, I don't know, top 10, top 12 matchup in the third week into the season. So the big time starts right off the bat, man.
No, there's no joke. And we've seen it coming pretty much since the schedule was released. Obviously, takes on a whole nother level once you see the rankings get applied. But, you know, I don't want to sound like a broken record.
He has a broken record.
But he broke his record.
Oh, no.
That could not have been any better timing. I don't know if he just luck because he's still showing up, but well, we'll listen for him to come back. But I don't know. What was he talking about?
We were talking about football, and I think the other encouraging sign that we've seen in camp is Mike Penix is throwing the ball very well, which is, and looks like he's going to be ready to go September 4th. And I think all Indiana football fans know how important that is in terms of the offense. And not to denigrate Jack Tuttle too much, because apparently Jack is doing some good things and Donovan McCulley's doing some good things. But, the bottom line is 10-2 over the last two seasons when he's starting under center. There's just a confidence this team has with him under center that that they can win any game they play.
I agree with that. And I don't think that they don't have confidence in Jack Tuttle. It's just Michael Penix just gives everyone a little more confidence. That's because what they've seen him do, what we've seen him do. We've seen him unleash that laser, and we saw him do what he did against Ohio State. Even a couple of years ago in Michigan State, a game that he lost. That was that his first start back from the injury after that? He throws 20 passes, completes 20 passes in a row there. Should have broke the Big Ten record, actually, because there was a penalty called on something. But anyway, his throwing is just going, and he looks bigger and stronger. This is the first time there was not much difference to me between his first year and his second year. Buddy, I can tell you right now, at Big Ten Media Days, when he was up on the Big Ten TV stand, or anytime I was behind him, you could just see that the body definition, how it had broader, his shoulders were broader. And that's going to make a difference. Of course, shoulders doesn't help the knees and all that, but just being stronger. When Jack Tuttle had to play last year, he took some shots, a lot of shots, but he was giving them. He wasn't shying away from it. So, and to have a quarterback like that, it's helpful. You don't want one that you think is dainty and, it's like a China doll, which I'm not saying Michael Penix is a China doll, but adding that bulk is going to help him a lot. I think it's going to help him with confidence, of being more confident to be able to lower his shoulder if he has to.
Yeah, and the other thing too is the accuracy on the deep balls. I think you see that getting better every year, and we've seen that a little bit in camp too. Just how he's throwing the football, and the fact that he's still got the zip on it, but you're seeing some really good accuracy, and you're really seeing some balls in tight windows there that I think will serve the offense well. And year 2 under Nick Sheridan, do you have a little bit more chemistry? Do you have more continuity? I think the thing with too, and I'm going to write this about in the Big Ten football page in general that we have coming out in a week and a half, is just having that full off season. Last year with COVID, Miles Marshall talked about how scaled down the playbook was last year because of the fact that you didn't have that. So what will we see with Nick Sheridan's offense with the full playbook this season? How much more creative can it be? And I think that's something that's going to impact Indiana along with every other team in the Big Ten. You're going to have more time to prepare, more time to put things in place, and I think you're going to see better football as a result.
Absolutely. You've got different pieces that they've added, some transfers in different places to continue to make things better on the defensive line, at running back with Stephen Carr. So even though they lost Samson James, and we never really talked about him going to Purdue. We'll do that when we come back, but let's take a break. We've got more to talk about here on Indiana Sports Beat. Kevin Brockway with us from CNHI. We're back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for a
I'm listening. What did I do with my breakfast screen?
Breakfast with Jim Coyle.
Breakfast with Jim Coyle.
He said, I think I remember the movie. Jim, did you notice the campus speed limit at Ole Miss, what it was?
I did not.
It's 18 miles an hour. You know why?
Manning.
Because of Archie Manning, yeah. That's kind of neat.
I
I always thought that was kind of cool.
It
Whenever I
is.
went there. What?
It's funny just to be able to think of that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Trying to think of Indiana's greatest football player of all time.
Third, did you drive by the basketball arena? They built a new basketball arena there like 5 or 6 years ago. It's really nice.
Would Indiana's greatest football player of all time not be Antoine Randall?
No.
The other option would be Anthony Thompson, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah. Anthony Thompson should have won the Heisman Trophy.
What about George Taliaferro?
Well, he's not he doesn't oversee Anthony Thompson.
Why does he, and this is not trying to sound stupid or
no,
but why does he have a statue?
He was the first African American to be drafted by the NFL. Did he break the color barrier in the Big Ten as well?
I think there were some before, but he was one of the
But he was the first African American drafted in the NFL, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
That would make sense then.
He was also on Yes, he was. He was on Indiana's 1945 undefeated Big Ten championship team.
I mean, he was a heck of a player, too. That's why I would say that he
with Ted Kluszewski, who was a big-time player for the Cincinnati Reds, who had tied the record of 5 consecutive homers in a game until Joey Votto just broke it. How much more information you guys need today, huh? The Civic LX front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month, or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway is here from CNHI.
I was telling Jim during the break about because he moved his daughter into Ole Miss, that the speed limit at Ole Miss is 18 miles an hour on campus for Archie Manning. So things you learn.
Yeah, and we were having a debate on IU. For IU, who would that be? And I mean, I'd have to go with Anthony Thompson. He should have won the Heisman Trophy. He got screwed over on that deal, but he did. Kevin Ware.
Andre Ware.
What's crap. The only reason Anthony Thompson did not win is because he was on a losing team. Because they lost to freaking Purdue.
Yeah, you saw
that. They gave him a 4-5 record.
You see that Tony Stuckey comment, 32 miles an hour on campus. That'd be a little dangerous. Yeah, I think.
That would be great. What was Antoine Randall's number? Was he 7?
Yeah, so 7 miles an hour. That'd be a little safer.
That would suck.
I was driving back.
George Taliaferro. How about George Taliaferro? What was he, like 78?
Yeah, that would be.
That would be fun.
That'd be pretty bad. Yeah. I noted. I went to the mall after practice yesterday, and the kiddos are coming back here, and Bloomington, and driving down, and all these people moving in, and it's getting that time of year where it's a lot of energy in B-Town and Bloomington, right?
Absolutely. And while things aren't as loose right now as they had been, and that we hope they will be, it's still livable, manageable. You're able to go out and have fun. So just let's keep enjoying it and doing those things. I'm looking forward to full stadiums. I'm looking forward to the buzz of people, of laughing, and the smell of barbecue in the air. Those grills, man. Think about that. A fall Saturday. It's a beautiful sky. It's 72 degrees. You've got the smell of brats going and all of that. Band, you can hear some band music in the background. It's just, there's no other sport really that, even basketball's a different deal. You go to the arena and that's a different vibe. This is kind of an day long fun build up, meeting of people, reunions. There's so much to it. It's not just about the game. The game, I guess, is the centerpiece, but this is like a full banquet of a meal, where a basketball game is you go to the game and you may go to the dinner before or after or something, and that's cool. But football is just a fun deal. And there are programs and teams that have fun whether they're winning or not.
Yeah.
But when you have a winner, damn it, you ought to be having fun. There's no excuse not to. So I hope that we see that this year. But yeah, there are programs. I remember when Kentucky stunk, and it didn't matter. They'd still dress up. They're all dressed up in their ties and their coats and their little Southern whatever, and going to the games and all that. But yeah, it's just, I'm looking forward to some fun Saturday afternoons, man.
Yeah, it really, it brings people together, Saturday afternoons in the fall, and there's something to be said for that. But for so many years, like you said, Indiana football, it was just kind of the party before the game, and the game was an afterthought. And now what Tom Allen has done certainly has made that, not the case anymore. Now, you want to see people going to the stadium and stay for all four quarters. And I think that's going to be important too. I mean, I think you do have to change that culture a little bit, particularly if you're playing a game like Cincinnati and you're in a tight game in the fourth quarter. You want that energy in the building. You want 52,000 people to still be in there and not, tailgate lots. Yeah.
You have to have that. That's what the Michigans and those places have. That's part of their mystique.
Yeah,
of having that noise, making it difficult on the other team. That's an advantage of playing at home. So if you're not having a good home crowd, then there's no damn advantage. So yeah, you need all of that, and that's been a problem for IU students and people either leaving at halftime and not coming back or whatever. But yeah, let's hope that's not the case this year. But
exactly, that's my message to Indiana fans. There's plenty of time to tailgate before the game. There's time to tailgate after the game. But, the four quarters, be in there, be engaged, really, because that really, I've seen it at other schools, certainly, over the years in Florida, when you have 80,000 people in the Orange Bowl, 90,000 people in the Swamp, that really makes a big impact. You can impact the game. You can impact snap count, so many things that, you can be as a 12th man. If you're in there, you pack the stadium, and you're engaged and you're loud.
I keep going back to the Michigan game in '87, where Bo Schembechler called a timeout because of noise, complained to the officials about noise and was giving a free timeout, which is the biggest joke of all time, considering they play in a 110,000 seat stadium. And at that time, IU stadium was not even enclosed.
Yeah.
So you've got an open-ended stadium. How loud can an open-ended stadium be? Are you serious? Come on. So can you imagine now if they actually had that full crowd in there?
Yeah.
I mean, I've never really seen that thing. I mean, Ohio State, that game was full, but yeah, I mean, it would just be fun. That electric and that electricity will feed into the other programs.
Yeah.
Into the fall. And I've talked about Indiana could potentially have their top 6 programs all ranked at the same time. Football is definitely already ranked. Soccer ranked, men's soccer. I haven't seen the women's soccer poll yet, but they were ranked last year. You've got women's basketball, baseball that in the spring, which is always ranked. And I'm missing one. Who am I missing? I'm missing a
women's
program,
basketball. Did he say women's basketball already?
I mentioned them. At least I thought I did. Women's basketball, women's soccer. So there's 4 or 5. Yeah, there's also 5 or 6 of them right there. So
baseball. Did he talk about?
Yeah, well, in the spring. But so that's your top 6 programs ranked. What else do you want? I mean, that's a pretty successful. How many schools have that right now?
I think Indiana basketball fan, they want men's basketball in the top 25. I think that's what they.
Oh, without question.
That's what they want.
They would take Indiana basketball over all the other 5 combined.
Yeah, that's what they want.
That is without question. I promise you, because we could talk about everything, the biggest stories, but we could talk about a middling basketball story, and it's the interest is double. I get that.
Yeah,
but that's just not life. Unfortunately, there's other things that go.
But there has to be that climb. You know what I mean, for Indiana basketball, and it started in the Bahamas this weekend. And maybe you never know how seasons unfold. I think that's the thing. And you bring back Trey Jackson Davis, one of the best players in the Big Ten, and that's a pretty good start. That's something to build around for sure.
Tim is suggesting dollar long necks will keep fans in the stands. Well, you may not be wrong about that, but I promise
it might not keep fans in the stands, because after about 7 or 8 of them, you might be running into them. Be like the disco demolition night, and
you'll be like Forrest Gump, shot in my buttocks. Pete says James Hardy, top receiving yards, reception leader. I was talking about Indiana's all-time leader. No way, man. Come on, Pete. You were here when Anthony Thompson was in school, man. What are you talking about? Come on. Yeah, but he's got a high number too. That would be good. That would be a high speed limit. That would be great. But it's look. See, I want to make sure we're not over a break, so we're good. But yeah, it's looking to be an outstanding fall for everything. But the one thing for the bigger teams, I guess it may not be COVID issues, with teams and all that stuff. It seems like the teams have gotten away from that, at least collegiately. They're doing a good job of maintaining that. We're not hearing about anybody, at least that, or they're keeping it quiet.
Well, I think the vaccination rates are pretty high, so that's good. Most of these teams have 80 or 90% vaccination rates, which I think is fairly strong. Now, the issue is Indiana going to Iowa. Iowa is a state that is been a little shaky with COVID, and the school is not requiring
masks. Which surprises me. Really surprises me.
Yeah, and it's starting to get a little bad in Kentucky too, and they play Bowling Green at the end of the month. So you are going to go into some dangerous places the first month of the season. So you just got to keep your fingers crossed, be vigilant, mask up. Obviously have get the rest of the guys vaccinated, anyone that you can, and just go down there and take your best shot at it. And I think Indiana will be careful, but I think the fact that the school has a vaccine mandate that was obviously challenged in the Supreme Court and upheld, so all Indiana students have to be vaccinated. I think here it's going to be pretty good, and it's going to be pretty safe. I just have fingers crossed that we're going to get through this okay.
Yeah, courts have all upheld that stuff. So Tim asks, how's the offensive line look? I don't know how much we've really gotten to see them yet. Well, really, I mean,
Ryder Anderson was very praised the offensive line last week. I think you're going to see guys in it's going to be interesting how they utilize the 5 that they have in certain spots. But I think that I think they've performed fairly well from people that have talked about them so far. So it's going to be interesting to see the next couple of weeks how that develops.
Mikey so he agrees, man. Oh, yes, sir. IU basketball is what they live and breathe, although he is proud of the other IU sports teams. Here's a good question. Tim asked, can you get Kentucky back on the football schedule? No, that will never happen. They're an SEC school. That is not going to happen. We just talked about that alliance that Indiana is or the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the ACC. It will not involve scheduling an SEC team. That I guarantee you. Why? The whole reason that they're doing this is to build up strength against that damn conference because
but Penn State's playing Auburn this year. You can do one.
That's on the schedule now. That's because it's on the schedule now. That game was scheduled way before all this stuff happened. I'm telling you, in the future, they're not going to be scheduling SEC teams. How? You've got your own conference games, and if you're going to have an alliance with another conference, and if you want to have Kentucky is not going to want to schedule Indiana. If they schedule a non-con game, they want a game that they can win.
Yeah,
they want a cream puff.
They do, but I mean they're facing Louisville. Well, I think where you might see Indiana.
That's a
I think where you might see Indiana, Kentucky is say if I don't think IU fans are hoping for this, but say some things don't go your way and you go 8-4, you could have an Indiana Kentucky Music City Bowl. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yes,
in Nashville,
and they talked about that opportunity. It almost happened.
Yeah, almost happened in the Gator Bowl. Yeah.
Or year before last.
It almost happened in the Gator Bowl, and then it was Indiana.
And it would have happened had Tennessee not done that, and that would have been
dropped
great.
out of the Music City Bowl. Yeah.
Louisville.
Yeah, they're playing.
They're playing. Yeah. They're on the schedule.
2024, right? They're going to be in the Lucas Oil, I think.
So that let's see. Yes, and we hadn't talked about that. Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Thanks for bringing it up, Mike. Yes, he did transfer to Purdue. Samson James, who originally committed to Ohio State, flipped to Indiana, jumped into transfer portal last year, got out of the transfer portal, back in the transfer portal this year, and he is off to Purdue, where he thinks he can gain the starting job there since he couldn't get it at Indiana over Stephen Carr. He's not going to get the starting job there unless injury, I think. I think he thinks he can win the second spot there. Does that mean he couldn't get the second spot at IU? Man, dude.
Maybe he wasn't beating out Tim Baldwin. Maybe he wasn't beating out David Ellis. It's hard to say really with Samson, but he just seemed like a perpetually unhappy guy. I mean, he was going to transfer last year, and they had to talk him into it coming back.
He flip-flopped. First of all, he was committed to he flipped on his commitment to begin with. So he's been flipping and flipping and flipping.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think and I think there were I just remember when he was a freshman at Rutgers and he had that fumble and then they took him out and they put David Ellis in there and we saw him fumble a little bit in practice. I think there's some ball security issues there too with him, and that's going to be interesting to see how his career evolves at Purdue. But I think he could eventually win that job, and I think he thinks he can too. I mean, Xander Horvath is a nice kind of a power back, a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield really well and certainly fits Brom's system there. But I think Samson is probably a little bit more of a dynamic runner than Xander Horvath is. And King Daru is a guy I remember as a freshman I thought could be pretty good, but he really stepped back as a sophomore. So I think Samson will have some opportunities there. It's just going to be a matter of if he cashes in and takes advantage of them.
I agree. I look forward. How's that? The commitment, Joe Strickland that went there. You saw it pissed off the IU players, which is great to see that because they're like, hey, we are owning this state now. You can see that they're taking ownership. That's great. And it angered them. Yeah. And you saw that come out. Well, this will, to me, this is to them. If I was a player, I would take that twice as personally
Well, don't forget
twice as personally.
Don't forget DeMarge Lewis too, a guy that Tom Allen talked up last year a little bit in camp, and then took a step back because of COVID and never really regained. I think maybe that status. He's going to Purdue also. So you got another guy, IU guy that's at Purdue that transferred in the defensive line. So you got two of them that cross. So it'll make for an interesting Old Oak and Bucket game in November. And of course, the unfortunate thing last year with the COVID situation is you got to play them up there again. You know what I mean? You didn't get a chance to play them down here last year, so you got to go up to West Lafayette again. But of course, 2 years ago, the Bucket is still in Bloomington, and 2 years ago they won that thrilling overtime game. And this year, we'll see. I think up there's a lot of certainly the bloom is off the rose for Jeff Brom, and a lot of it's had to do on the defensive side of the ball and special teams. They've been really sloppy there the last 2 years, but if they can shore that up, they might surprise some people in the Big Ten West, and it could be an interesting game.
Yeah, Jeff Brom is a great coach. Don't get that wrong. I promise you. He knows
great
what he's
offensive
doing.
mind.
Yeah. It just I don't know what it's. I think he just went the wrong way defensively early on, and that hurt him. And they had a lot of injuries offensively that hurt them, and they couldn't get on. They lost that Nevada game, and it really kind of side railed them right off the bat.
And they don't have that dynamic quarterback too. They've got a bunch of guys at that position. They don't have.
That's the thing that shocks me.
Yeah,
with Jeff Brom, I'm like, wow, Indiana's quarterback room is exquisite right now. I mean, they could not be happier. And if you're an Indiana fan, you could not be happier. Mike Penix has an NFL arm. Jack Tuttle is a potential NFL backup quarterback. Donovan McCulley, I don't know how good he's going to be, because he looks just like he's going to be a stud. Even this kid from Texas, I've only seen him on film, Josh Hoover, but damn it, he looked very poised, quick release, just looked good. That is a stocked and solid quarterback room with continuity. Guys, I don't, how is Jeff Brom not lining that up? Now, that's a question that I don't know. I'm surprised that their quarterback room is not one of the better ones in the state, but that means we got to take a break. We'll come back. We got more to talk about here on Indiana Sports Beat, and we'll do it with Kevin right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
You going to hop on that women's soccer Zoom?
When is that?
It's like right after the show. They're going to start at 10:55, but who's the girl that was from the she said she's from the New Zealand team and she scored a goal in the Olympics or something?
Dude.
That's what he was trying to sell me on the Zoom, and it's like, if I'm going to write something, maybe I'll write about that. Like, the girl that
Man, I'm so tired.
You and I both, man. I started on the Indiana Blue Ribbon preview last night. I wrote like 1,200 words, and then I made the mistake of watching the Mets-Giants game because it was on MLB Network and was up to
Here comes the Mets. Here comes the Mets.
They're just so frustrating to watch. When they hit, they can't pitch. When they pitch, they can't hit. It's just, they're going through one of those stretches right now. Well, they're facing the Giants and the Dodgers. I mean, they're the two best teams in the freaking league. But Chris Bryant had 2 homers last night for the Giants. So that was the guy the Mets should have got, not Baez.
The soccer game went to a 0-0 draw. Preseason number 2, Indiana.
Who's ahead of them? Not Marshall, right?
If it is, don't even. I see why you got to bring it up. That led me to. That had all these comments from those Marshall people last year when I said that. I called it a bought title.
Yeah.
Bought is not the right word because I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to insinuate that they're cheating. I meant bought by all they brought. I should have said
The
a
Ringers
brought in title.
It's like
All
the
they
movie
did was
the
bring in.
yeah.
Yes, the Ringers. There you go.
It's like the movie The Expendables, right? They bring in the
All of their goals were scored by foreign players except for one guy. They're 10. The top
we got
10
10
minutes.
seconds. We got to come back in
Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers.
Some NFL news. Tim Tebow released by the Jaguars. So that comeback attempt is over.
Who?
Tim Tebow.
I know I was kidding, but what? I mean, what? Come on. Give it up, dude. Why is he just in that much of an? I didn't ever see him as an attention seeker, but this has gone beyond. I mean, give me a break, dude. When did he get out of? How long has he been out of the NFL? Like out, not trying to get back in, but out.
I mean, it was a good 6 or 7 years, and then of course, if you remember the preseason game over the weekend, he kind of whiffed on the block, and it just didn't look good, and they just decided. Urban Meyer, his former college coach, I thought he would give him a little more rope, but he cut him, and the front office people just didn't think he was. So we will see where he moves on with his life. But
it's a publicity stunt.
He the whole thing with the Mets too, but it's keeping his name out there and so forth. But he will go on and try to do good works with his ministry and Night to Shine, which I've been to that. That's an amazing event.
And he's a great person. Stop somebody saying. So I never really thought of him as an attention seeker, but I'm like, dude, you don't have a chance here.
Yeah.
You've got 5 years of guys that have come behind you that are now faster, stronger, all that. Give it up.
I think where Tim changed a little bit from his college years, because I was there, I covered him in his college years, was he signed with this agency called CAA, Creative Arts, which represents a lot of people. And I think they pushed him out there to do things, and we're in his ear. We're in his ear a little too much. And Tim, being a good guy, tried to listen and was trusting of that. But I think he's damaged his persona a little bit. This last decade with some of the stuff that's happened.
And that's coming from a guy who spent a ton of time covering Florida sports. See, Tim said this earlier. I don't know if I put this up. We were talking about it. He said he didn't want to play Kentucky in a bowl. He wants Clemson, Alabama, or Georgia in a bowl. Yeah. And actually, that's the attitude you need to have, because if you're playing Kentucky, you didn't have a very good season.
Yeah, exactly. I said if things slip, or if you have, I don't think Indiana fans would want that. I think Indiana fans want to play the best.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think Kentucky is now screwed. Think of teams like that in the SEC.
Yeah.
That are trying to get. Man, you cannot build that many good teams. There's going to be an effect on those teams below. I truly believe that.
And Mark Stoops has done some good things at Kentucky. I mean,
they had some good recruiting classes. I mean, and you'll still get some good recruits because you'll get to play those teams, but you're just not, there's no way you're going to be able to go up against the likes of that many good, traditionally good programs. And Kentucky just took a blow. I promise you, they didn't like it.
Wandale Robinson, right, from Nebraska, is there now. He went back. He's from Frankfurt, right? He went back to Kentucky, and I'll be interested to see his impact on the SEC because I think he's kind of a dynamic guy. He's an interesting guy.
Let's see. Oh yeah, here's one. Mike put up Samson James flip-flop. This reminds him of Gunnar Keel, originally committed to IU several years ago. Actually, no, he originally committed, I think, to LSU. Then IU, then Notre Dame, then Cincinnati is where he ended up. I don't know if that's quite the order, but I think all of those schools were involved. And I actually played high school football against his dad, ironically. They're from Columbus, went to Columbus East High School. I went to Floyd Central. Those Keels, man, you had Gunner, Kip and Pat, but also Blair Keel was a stud. First quarterback to start at Notre Dame ever, I think. Freshman quarterback to ever start at Notre Dame.
I remember the Jerry Faust days, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, don't bring Notre Dame fans don't like to hear that. Oh, that'd be like that is not as bad as, but that will be what the Archie Miller era is. We're thought of 10 years from now. Well, hell, it's like that now. That's the Archie Miller era will always be thought of that. When you bring up the Archie Miller era to an IU basketball fan 5-10 years from now, it's just going to make your skin crawl. Oh God, it was bad. And it was. And that's exactly what Jerry Faust was. Man, they hired a successful high school coach, which kind of seems like what IU did for basketball 4 years ago.
You know, kids are going to want to go where they want to play. Let's put it that way. But I think sooner or later, if you're a guy like Sampson, you got to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, look, I've got to, prove to these coaches that I'm worth being the feature back. And, that didn't happen at IU. Maybe it'll happen at Purdue. And, you kind of wish them well in a way. Obviously, you don't want them to run for 100 yards against IU, but, it just didn't work out for him here. He just could never prove to Mike Hart or couldn't prove to Dylan McCullough that he was the guy. So that's why he's gone.
Our good friend Doug from down under in Australia. Appreciate you listening and watching from Australia, Doug. But says if it's soccer, of course it's from overseas. Well, what we're talking about, Doug, is Marshall built an entire team on overseas players. Indiana, and I'm not saying they're the only one, but Indiana's program is built on Midwestern players, kids from right here. And you can recruit. I got into this discussion before, but of course it was with Marshall people. You won, but that is not, I don't think that is the, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the intent. What's like, the spirit. That's not in the spirit of how things were intended to be. I don't think, to bring in a bunch of international players who probably have had tutelage under before them that you don't get here. But it is what it is. I hope that I'd love to see Marshall get their butt handed to him now. I don't mind having international players. But
here's the other thing.
10 of your 11 players, it's your entire team.
Another thing, too, that I find interesting, and do you remember back in the day, this is about 30 years ago, remember when Andrew Gaze played for Seton Hall in the Final Four, and he was like 27 years old? And you're playing against 21. There's a physical maturity there, too, sometimes when you bring in an international guy that's like 24, 25 years old playing against a 22-year-old. There's got to be some policing of that, I think, in terms of like even the age of guys, too, with regards to that, because there's different physical maturity in that.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a different lifestyle, but that's an argument that I'd like to have that discussion with Mike DeCourcy next week, because, he's big into soccer, and, since I cover Indiana in the Big Ten, it comes across to outside people as sour grapes, and that's not what I'm meaning it as.
Losers layman, yeah.
Yeah, it's how it's coming across. That's not what I'm meaning it as, because, all right, they didn't just beat Indiana. They beat Indiana. They beat like the three top programs. barely, but they did. But I'm looking at it as they brought in some semi-pro players and playing college kids. That's how I view it. And
Pitt did the same thing though. In Indiana beat Pitt. Remember, Pittsburgh was a very similar roster.
They almost beat Marshall. It was a game that could have gone a match that could have gone either way. But it's just Bills. Also, we talked about this earlier. Yeah, there's been disputed reports on Jalen Hood-Schifino to pick between Indiana and Tennessee or Indiana and Pitt. But how about that comment? Jalen Hood-Schifino to pick between two football schools. There you go.
Is Tennessee a football school anymore? They've been a mess there, you know.
Well, they've got Taven Jackson.
That's true, and they have now they have the whole UCF thing with Heupel and Danny White, the athletic director. They're trying to fix it, but you want to talk about a misevaluation, right? Jeremy Pruitt.
That's a great point.
Okay, it was like European.
We're
European
going back and forth here
with all USA. But you want to talk about misevaluation with Tennessee, and what cost Jeremy Pruitt was not thinking Michael Penix was good enough to play football at Tennessee. That's going to go down as his,
revoked. Hey, what if he's not going to win the Heisman? But that would be hilarious. Can you imagine being the guy that took the scholarship away from a Heisman Trophy winner?
Yeah.
Hey, he could be a Big Ten MVP.
Yeah,
that's a legit possibility. You want to be the guy that jerked the scholarship from?
Yeah.
Digger Phelps took a scholarship away from John Laskowski. Dumbass. I
mean, misevaluations. We've seen it so many times. We saw it in the Archie Miller era too. Misevaluations. Demezy Anderson over Aaron Henry.
No, I don't have any eligibility left, Doug. My eligibility is exhausted. And soccer was not my sport. That's way too damn much running for me. I'd be out there going, whoa, can we take a TO here, baby? I need a break. I could not do that. That was never my, thank God soccer was not popular when I was playing sports. That would have stunk to get involved in that. Although it looks like a great game to play, I just don't think I could have ever done that much running. I'm not built.
Well, that's why I was. That's why I was a goalkeeper. I was a goalkeeper. I didn't have to sit back there and get 100-mile-an-hour shots. Take it at me and come home with bruises. I broke my thumb my sophomore year. Somebody kicked my thumb when I was trying to go out for a breakaway save. And it's a rough position.
It can be. It's
corner kicks. You know what I mean? You got all sorts of bodies flying at you, and you got to go up in traffic and get the ball. It's kind of like being like a wide receiver.
Jalen Hood-Schifino, like we've said, is narrowed his picks down to 2. Indiana and Tennessee, it appears, not Pitt. That announcement decision coming on the 24th, so that's about a week away.
Rick Barnes has done a nice job with that Tennessee program in the last few years. I mean, they're on the rise. I mean, they got it right with basketball with that hire. They did a good job because he's got Tennessee basketball to where they're consistently contending. They won the SEC or split the SEC title in 2019 with Auburn, and he's done a good job there.
Let's see. 4 cups of coffee won't do it, brother. Tim asked me if I'm coming down for any Southern Indiana football games. New Albany Floyd Central. I'd love to. Trying to get down there always whenever I can.
The Highlanders, baby.
Yeah, and he mentioned earlier that New Albany opens up, I think it's at Bloomington South this year, which is ironic because when I was in college, I coached high school football, and then at IU, I coached at Edgewood for a year. And a good friend of mine, Steve Cooley, we were actually supposed to coach together. But he ended up coaching at Bloomington South on the freshman team. He's the head coach at New Albany now.
Yeah,
and
I want to go to that game and see how good Dason McCullough is, because that's going to be fascinating. What, 6'5", 210-pound linebacker? How dominant is he going to be in that game?
We'll find out. The truth joining us, Robert. I'm sure he needs money and pizza. If you'd ever come up, brother, you got daughters up here.
I've got a coupon for you, because you always ask for pizza from Pizza X, from the good folks at Pizza X. If whenever you're coming up, you're going to have to get in touch with me because I'll get you hooked up with that. He's always wanting pizza. Always send pizza. Well, I'm going to send you some pizza. Truth to the truth. Robert Carter, he's down in Southern Indiana. He's got some daughters that are going to school here. So, man, it has been another fun day. What do you have coming up next?
Yeah, well, we talked about that earlier. Just plenty of football stuff. Big Ten page coming out in all the CNHI papers. Myself and Elton Hayes are working very hard on that. So we will be, so be sure if you're in Anderson or Terre Haute or Kokomo to pick up those papers, Jeffersonville down there, to check out some of our impressions and what we think about Big Ten football coming up this season.
Looking forward to it. And we've got lots more coming up tomorrow, of course. Bob Kravitz will be with us, Kyle Nedenrip. I think there was a question that came up earlier, but we can talk about high school football as that is upon us. Man, I cannot believe it. I really am shocked. They're here. It's ready to go. But so we'll look forward to that and lots more throughout the week as the schedule we get closer and closer. Looking forward to September 4th, man. That's the countdown. But I hope everyone else has a great day, and I hope it's been a good one for you so far. But big thanks to Mike DeCourcy, of course, and Chronic Hoosier, Kevin Brockway, producer John, and most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we've got nothing to do. But appreciate you, and welcome back tomorrow to the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.